What is going on, Small Gains family? I hope you're doing good wherever it is that you're listening to this from today. Joe Wicks, a UK household name when it comes to, I guess, fitness, movement, cookbooks, has very much been on one in the mainstream media in the UK this week and has spread a lot of fear-mongering, misinformation, sort of cherry picking little bits of research here and there. And essentially, he came out with a campaign to raise awareness about ultra processed foods, UPFs, and put pressure on the government to change the laws around them. And he launched this protein bar. It's called a killer protein bar. And to go along with that was a documentary, very much not worth your time, of him essentially manufacturing this killer protein bar, using as much processing and additives as is legally possible to essentially raise awareness that ultra processed foods are bad. There was no nuance, no quoted studies. He did a bit of a 180 at the end when he got backlash for it. It's been a whole thing. And I just wanted to use the opportunity to ensure that anyone in the UK wasn't influenced by it, but also to take the time to kind of talk about some of the stuff around ultra processed foods, because there's been a lot of things come out in the last year or so about potential detriments of ultra processed foods, highly processed foods. There was the book that gained a lot of traction called Ultra Processed People. And so many of these things lack nuance and don't take into account economics, politics, environment, access to food, food inequity, cost of living, stable housing, stable income. And this has just missed the mark. So me and Sophia had a bit of a yap about it. Sophia is my mate. You may have heard her on the podcast before. You may have seen her on my Instagram stories. She's a nutritionist. She's a food relationship coach. She helps a lot of neurodivergent folks with their food journey. She is also autistic and ADHD like me. And we decided to watch the documentary and make sure we could challenge it in a way that was helpful to you lot. So I hope it's helpful. Please don't be scared of protein bars. And any follow-up questions, feel free to shoot me messages or leave comments afterwards and I'll get back to you all. Let's do the thing. Mate, what the bloody hell is a killer protein bar?
I have got to come to the conclusion that it's not a real thing, because a protein bar cannot kill anyone unless you lob it at the head hard enough.
Yeah, unless it was like proper solid. How many protein bars do you reckon you eat in like a week?
On a week where I have time and capacity, maybe 2 or 3. But on a week like now, where I'm working lots, I'm traveling, I am feeling a bit stressed. So I don't necessarily want to have to make all my meals from scratch. Maybe 1 a day. I have been known to have 2 in a day before as well.
Yeah, I think I'm like 4 or 5 a week. Like one a day if I'm busy and traveling. If I was like on tour or traveling or stressed, like you said, probably 2 sometimes. And
what's your favorite protein bar?
Honestly, whatever is on offer on NutriCircle. The podcast isn't sponsored by NutriCircle, but I buy them in bulk when they're like slightly before their best by date. I was literally just talking about a client to this before I came on this call. From Yorkshire, love a bargain, will always find everything cheap, even if I was a billionaire. But right now, I brought 2 to the call for show and tell. These are like vegan, gluten-free, Misfits ones, brownie batter and peanut butter fudge. Those are pretty decent. Love an Oreos grenade.
Oh, yeah, that one is good.
Like the Prodo ones. Like, yeah, I'm pretty easy. What about you?
I'm not sure if you say it barbells or bearbells, but those ones.
I think they are bearbells, but I call them barbells because that just makes more sense, right?
Yeah, they're banging. They do like a caramel one. They do a Rocky Road flavour one. So anything Rocky Road is going to be my sort of vibe. But yeah, they are really tasty.
How long have you been eating protein bars for?
20 years, if not longer.
Yeah, I'm going to say like 10 to 12 years.
We're doing all right.
I haven't died.
No.
If me and you are eating an average of, let's say, like 4 to 5 protein bars a week, sometimes less, sometimes more, and we have all our health markers, and Joe Wicks has obviously made this killer protein bar and it's a big campaign, but it kind of has just completely missed the mark and it's turned protein bars into a bit of like a scary thing, when actually, to an extent, like they can be the more nutritious option.
Yeah, and some people, when we think about all the complexities that come into being able to make nutritious choices, for some people, they are super convenient. They offer, like a supplementation of additional protein, which a lot of people struggle to get in. And, I work with clients who are neurodivergent. Maybe they've got sensory issues and they would struggle to, have enough snacks in to fuel themselves properly. I've got disabled clients who can't always make meals from scratch. And I've got some clients who've got 3 kids, busy lives, careers, homes to look after. And they just want to be able to have a snack that's quick and easy to grab and allows them to just get some extra protein in on the go.
Yeah, and that's what it's for. It's like to supplement.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's the easier option. And I think the thing that I keep thinking every time Joe Wicks talks about nutrition is this guy like qualified to speak about any of this? I don't want to assume, but I've definitely heard people say he hasn't got a PT qualification. And I don't know if we're safe to say that he hasn't got a nutrition or dietitian qualification.
So I've heard the same. I've also heard he does have a degree in sports science. So I don't know. But the problem we have, right, is that loads of people talk about nutrition and health that aren't qualified.
Yeah.
And also it's important that people do have qualifications to back up what they are talking about. But we also know there's issues that come into play because unfortunately some people abuse a title or a position of authority. We've got dietitians agreeing with him. We've got registered nutritionists literally like sucking up to him, liking all his posts. If you watch the documentary, I recognised a couple of registered nutritionists that were at the whole launch.
Oh God, yeah.
Like clown show for this bar. So yes, it's important that people are qualified, but that's not enough to know that we can trust the information they give out.
Yeah, valid. And I suppose all the people that went on Stephen Bartlett's podcast that like really well educated would like be considered a doctor. So that's actually a really good point. And I guess like Joe Wicks started in the right place, just wanting people to move a bit more. But then now he's got to a point where he has very much affected some of my clients' like long-term relationship with food and exercise. And I know it's the same for yours as well. Like we've had conversations about Joe Wicks in the Fuzz Culture Club group chat and people have said, I stopped eating carbs because of him. Have you found that you've almost had to work with people to repair their food relationship because of people like him, and not just him, many other like people in positions of power in the media that are, bringing these black and white clickbait things into the world?
Yeah, it's definitely a contributing factor. We know disordered eating or eating disorders, they're multifaceted, right? So that means there's various different causes. And some people could look at this killer protein bar campaign and, take the message from it that we should be aware of how many ultra processed foods we are consuming. They could go off into the world, not struggle with disordered eating, have a healthy, balanced diet. But what we are seeing with this is people who live at extremes with food, which when you talk to the general population, that's most people, that's most clients that come to us, right? Because they've been told food is black and white. They haven't been taught nuance. Even if you think about the brief nutrition education we get in school, that's very black and white. Fruit and veg is healthy. Meat is good for you. Sugar is bad. Like that is what kids are brought up being taught. And Joe Wicks is seen as a valuable source of information for the general population. which is all people out there who are just trying to eat better, move a bit more, and have healthy lifestyles and be happy. So this is why it's really problematic. And yes, I have had clients and we've had lots of chats in our group about how this sort of stuff can really impact people who are already struggling with food, already confused about nutrition, already feel guilty for eating certain foods. And I think he did amazing things for like the British population in regards to making exercise accessible and getting people moving and bringing people together through communities with that. Like he genuinely will have been a lifeline for so many people in lockdown. But because he has such a big platform, he has a responsibility to fact check the information he's putting out and to consider, could this information have more of a negative impact than a positive one? And what are the risks? Like as healthcare professionals, our job is to do no harm and leave people better off as we found them than we found them. And can we really say that with what he has done with this whole marketing campaign, that he is leaving people better off than he found them? I don't think he is.
No, he's just getting lots of people talking about him. Obviously, for people like us, we've seen that and we're like, that's wrong. So we're going to now use that as a way for us to talk about ultra processed foods and whole food, minimally processed foods. But he has made people talk about it, but I just think it missed the mark. And obviously we both watched like the documentary last night. And I think everything I wrote down when I watched it was just so many questions. Like, because I'm like, does it? Is it? What? So obviously, like a really common one was aspartame. I never know how you say it. Aspartame, yeah, causing cancer. And I've made videos about this before because obviously it's that whole Diet Coke can thing, isn't it? It's like that too many Diet Cokes cause cancer, but when you actually look at the research, you'd have to drink like an insane amount every single day for a prolonged period of time.
Was it your video that was like it was 100 a day or something?
Yeah, I might have to unearth that because it's probably still relevant, especially right now. So a couple of things I wrote down. I don't know if you like noted down any similar things from the documentary, but like ultra processed foods, UPFs, are linked to 40% of premature deaths in England right now.
That's wild. That's not true, right?
I didn't find anything when I Googled it.
I want to know where they got that stat from, because this is the other thing we know as well, right? There is no evidence we have on ultra processed foods that confirms anything, because we just don't have enough evidence to draw clear conclusions.
Yeah.
So I found a stat that said there is a 4% higher risk of overall mortality for people consuming a diet fully made up of ultra processed foods. Who in their right mind is recommending that most people eat a diet fully made up of ultra processed foods? Yeah. But that 4%, I put it in a post today, that isn't evidence, that isn't research, that's conclusions that have been drawn by inaccurate studies that we have. And when we think about these ingredients contributing to causing cancer, we've got to remember how many marketing campaigns there have been over the last 50, 100 years saying that the sun increases the risk of cancer, x-rays, Tupperware, hair straightening products, different cosmetics. Like there's so many different things in everyday life that classes are carcinogenic. Is that how I pronounce it?
Yeah, I saw they mentioned carcinogenic. And they're saying that, is it xylitol, sucrose, maltitol, aspartame? They're saying that these are all, is it grade B carcinogenic?
Carcinogenics, yeah.
Isn't alcohol A?
Yes. Alcohol's A, smoking's A. And do you know what? Look, we might get to a position where ultra processed foods class as A, right? I don't actually dispute that has potential in the near future, but is everybody who agrees with Joe Wicks about the fact that we should be scared of ultra processed foods, we should never eat them, they're going to kill us, are they also never going to sit down and enjoy a glass of wine with their Whole Foods meal? Are they never going to enjoy a glass of champagne at a friend's wedding? Like, we know that food and drink can be so much more and are so much more than just fuel. If we think about health as multifaceted and, you know, the ways that we can connect with food and alcohol, we can socialize, we can relax, we can find a little bit of comfort when life is hard enough. And like morally, some people choose to not drink alcohol because of previous issues with addiction, or they've seen friends and family go through alcohol addiction. But then we also know, and the same with smoking and drugs, but we also know that food and ultra-processed foods are not addictive in the same ways that alcohol, drugs, and other substances that can increase the risk of cancer are. Like, I had an argument with someone about this the other day who was like, no. UPFs, they are addictive. And I was like, mate, you have not got people robbing their grandmas to go out and buy a packet of donuts. You've not got people living on the streets who are homeless because of a sugar addiction. I don't know if you remember the video James Smith did years ago, like shoving sugar up his nose. But like, you don't have people doing that with ultra-processed foods. Yes, they light up.
The same part of the brain, that's the argument, isn't it?
But so does sex, so do animals. Like when I see Aubrey, that part of my brain lights up. And as much as I would joke and say, I'm addicted to her, I'm not.
But she's not addicted.
Yeah, again, it's just no nuance. It's no, if you're going to make these claims, you have to have really fucking strong evidence to back them up.
And I think from what we saw from the TV show last night is that there were so many disclaimers on the end of it so they didn't get sued. Like, so they'd reached out to like Huel, Optimum Nutrition, Fulfill, and they'd reached out to them for comment and they'd put it all on the end as disclaimers. And if you're having to do that and you don't have the evidence to back up what you're saying, was there any point? And this is what is bringing me on to like my like main qualm with it, right? Joe Wicks is a millionaire. He is worth 55 million.
Is he?
Is he part of the problem? Because how much did it cost Joe Wicks to manufacture 60 million protein bars, fund a campaign, send boxes to influencers, make a documentary, have media coverage, do a PR tour? How much money did that cost? And he's saying the profit from the bars will go to charity, if there is any. Absolutely fair play. And he's hoping he's going to put pressure on the government to change things. But if you took all of that money that he has just spent, could he have brought together or created some sort of program or organization that worked with coaches, nutritionists all over the UK to create a campaign to protest and put pressure on the government, not to necessarily make people eat less ultra-processed foods, but to solve food inequity, but to solve access to foods? Like, he said he grew up with no money and no good access to food. Like, he knows.
Yeah, the fact he could have done so much good with this is what I find really frustrating. And he has so many privileges that most people will just never, ever get to experience, right? But you can see in the documentary, when you watch it, he's so conflicted with his values, like morally, he's unsure. If you're going with this, you have to be so sure. If you're going to do this, you have to be able to die by it, basically. And yeah, so 14% of homes in the UK live in food poverty. So that means they use food banks. That means they can't buy a fully balanced diet using just whole foods. That's basically what that means. So all of that money, can you imagine if it had gone to supporting people like that, or like you said, creating some sort of campaign to help us educate people? Because the problem we have with the government, when it comes to changing policies, it takes so much time. And I'm not saying it isn't worth creating campaigns. It takes so much time. And have you seen what they've just released recently to help tackle obesity?
Is it the Nandos thing?
I don't know. And we'll know.
Okay, what is it? And I'll tell you about the Nandos.
Well, it might be that. It's that you can't get free refills on fizzy drinks.
The Nandos thing.
How long do you think it took them to get that through?
Yeah. And imagine if you could just learn a bit more at school and they had like more stuff available.
Because when we look at like the issues that we have with food poverty, there's obviously people like Joe Wicks who are multimillionaires. There's then, and this is me like really narrowly categorizing people that's really difficult to do. You've then got people like us who sort of sit in the middle. We've got loads of privileges. We're still small businesses trying our best to educate people, taking all of these things into account for ourselves to a certain extent, but more for our clients and the people we support. And then we've got people who live in food poverty. We've got single parent families who, you know, maybe don't have access to a car to do a food shop. Or like one of my clients is a single mum with 3 kids. She literally can't get to the supermarket because she'd have to take 3 kids with her. And it's physically and practically not possible, right? So if we think of those 3 categories of people, again, there's so many variables that go into that. Joe's gone from the lowest one all the way to the highest one. And I actually don't have issues with successful people doing things to make more money. And I don't think he's done this to make more money. I don't know if I'm wearing rose-tinted glasses. I know he's getting so many more eyes on the other stuff he does and sells. And ultimately, when any of us do charity work, that will happen, right?
Yeah.
But I do not think he's actually thought about the best way to spend this money if he wants to support people with reducing ultra-processed food consumption and to improve their health.
Yeah, it's like he's tried to do something that will shock. It hasn't landed very well. He's had negative feedback from like the whole of the inclusive fitness and nutrition world. And it's like, well, I've done it now, so I have to keep going with it because it's a matter of pride. And what he wants to happen in the world that we live in, I don't think it can happen with the thing that he did to try and make it happen. And I'm sure that at one point his heart was in the right place, but like, man's not okay. Like, he's not all right. Like,
no.
Relationship isn't good. And he even says in the show, like, it's not my job to do this. And
yeah,
I think he is right. He shouldn't have done it. It's not to say that he shouldn't try, but he has the money, the power, and the platform to like assemble a lot of help if he truly did care about it and put pressure on the government. So yeah, the doc was a flop. It kind of sucked. I hope no one listening actually had to watch it. And I think the final thing that I just thought about it was, if these protein bars like go into stores, because he's got 60 million or whatever after he's given them all to the influencers and made them do.
Has he got 60 million?
60 million. And he said the best thing that would happen is that every person in the UK has one.
Why?
What I was thinking is that everyone's going to eat one and they're going to be okay.
Yeah. Or they're going to shit themselves and then be okay. Like, that was one thing that blew my mind, that the 2 of them were in this lab that looked like something from a rave with loads of white powder flying around.
Yeah.
Like,
lab.
Putting as much stuff in it to try and make people shit themselves from eating one bar. Like, I mean, I know we all like having a bit of a laugh and a joke, but that's just such a waste of time and resources. And yeah, then all the influencers being like, oh no, God, I wouldn't dare put that in my body.
I wish if I had one, I would eat it and then I would be fine.
Yeah. I know people that have had one and they're fine. And like, I get that he's using the protein bar to represent ultra processed foods in general. But what you said there about him not being okay, like that is genuinely something I think about a lot. And like, he starts off the documentary. We can't comment on someone's food behavior from what we see or what they say, but it looks like he's eating a lot of food to excess in his car. He said he's like a rat on a drain pipe with junk food. That's not a nice way to talk about yourself or your eating habits. He said that he stress eats. You know, there's the whole Jaffa cake relapse stuff that sort of points towards binge type behaviors. And when people are struggling with their own food relationship, and he genuinely believes he can't trust himself around junk food, right? So he now wants to spread this message so that nobody else struggles the way he does. I absolutely get that. But we also know that long-term change can't come from a place of shame, guilt, whether that's shaming yourself, like judgment. And I, like, hand on my heart, I do think he is a good person and he had decent intentions, that when he started actioning this whole marketing campaign, you can tell he was like, oh God, this is not what I thought it was going to be. But I just think it's gone too far. He's got a team of people around him that have a responsibility to question. Like, his wife was questioning it on TV and nobody's turned around to him and said, mate, I think you need some help with food yourself. And then maybe we can launch something to help people reduce ultra-processed food consumption and speak to the government about this, and this. Like,
yeah, imagine. There's part of me that feels sorry for him. Part of me that's a bit angry. And there's a part of me that's like, you're a millionaire and you're part of the problem. There's so many conflicting things. Obviously, this is just the discussion about why it's so damaging. He thought choosing a protein bar was a good idea. Now, we know that the misconception about consuming protein supplements is already quite rife. Like, people are like, oh, if I have protein powder, I'll get really bulky, or it'll have steroids in it. That's a lot of the general population's view on protein bars and protein powder to supplement. And obviously we are also in a world where everyone's proteinizing. I'm coining that, everything.
Yeah.
So like protein bread, protein bagels, protein brownie. If you actually look at the back of the packets from a protein brownie and a non-protein brownie, like, it's not like so dissimilar, but obviously the taste kind of sucks. So you'd probably want to get your protein from elsewhere and then enjoy a brownie separately.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many different things that we can talk about, but I think the main thing that if we can get anyone to take from this episode is like the actual health risks and things to consider when it comes to ultra processed foods, and what are we defining as an ultra processed food, just as a baseline.
Okay. So we don't have a clear definition. That's something that's really important to stress. But the simplest way, ultra processed food, a whole food that has been processed and has more than 5 ingredients. A processed food, a whole food that has been processed and has less than 5 ingredients. And a whole food, a food in its natural state with nothing added or removed. So that's a really simple way of understanding that. And then as far as what people can take away from this whole shit show, comes back down to the message that me and you have been preaching for years. Balance, moderation, that looks different for everybody. If we have to put a number on it, I say to my clients, 80% whole foods, 20% processed and ultra processed, minimal ultra processed. And if people have the ability to be able to reduce ultra processed foods, then they should. That doesn't mean we never have them. It doesn't mean we don't allow ourselves to enjoy these foods and to take joy from these food at times. But it means that we do have to parent our food choices most of the time, knowing that there'll be periods of time in our life where we do rely on processed foods or ultra processed foods a little bit more, and that's okay. I think that is the most simple way I can summarize it. But what's so interesting, that I don't know if you heard this in the documentary and I missed it. Did you ever hear the word balance or moderation?
I think there was this like tiny bit at the end where it was almost like I'm caveating this whole thing with like, yeah, like you should just like enjoy stuff in moderation. I think there was a tiny bit of that. I don't know if it was after he did the crying scene. Like there was basically like, there was a bit in that documentary where like he'd done the rollout, he'd done his PR tour, he'd done his influencer event. And then obviously he showed some of the backlash he got, which had like Josh's Instagram and a few other people's. And I think at that point was when he backtracked a little bit. I don't know if he said balance or moderation, but I think there was a tiny little bit that was like implied that they'd maybe just added in when he'd done like a post like interview or something. And I suppose like this is maybe coming from someone that can't enjoy things in moderation. Like
That's it.
if me and you went out for a coffee and a cake right now, as we always do, we would order whatever coffee we wanted. And if we went to a new coffee shop and they had loads of different baked goods that had multiple ingredients in, had gone through a lot of different processing, maybe they've got different preservatives or flavors in, or maybe they're home baked. Our first thought wouldn't be, we can't have one because they might be too processed.
Mm.
We can't have one because we'll eat all of them. And we know, as two people that have done the work on our food relationship, that we would probably get a cake each if we wanted one. If we didn't want it in the moment, we'd put it in a box, take it home.
Yeah.
And then we would eat it. And if there was any left, we'd take it home or we'd leave it. And this maybe sounds like a person that can't do that when it comes to the highly palatable foods that he's trying to get people to be a bit more scared of. And then when we talk about ultra processed foods specifically, so not necessarily like homemade baked goods, but like stuff you get from a shop. I don't know. Do we? What's an example? Let's take a Jaffa cake because it's topical.
Yeah.
That's made to be hyper palatable and moreish.
Yeah.
Hyper palatable, moreish, tastes delicious. That's where the food relationship and the coping mechanisms and the parenting comes in, because we have more access to that than ever.
Yeah, there's so much that comes into this conversation, which is why it's so hard to get enough nuance across, because we have to think about our food environment. How at the click of a button, I could literally go on Deliveroo now and have something delivered to my door by the time we've finished recording this in a couple of minutes. Like, food is so accessible. We socialize. If we think about how much we socialize now compared to just 20 years ago, every time me and you meet up, we go for a coffee and cake, like every time. So we've got to take that into account when we're having this conversation. Me and you are not saying or telling our clients, go out and act like a kid in a sweet shop with every food choice we make. But we're saying a healthy relationship with food means that you don't feel pressure around these foods. It feels calm. If you want a bit, you can have a bit. If you don't have to. If it's not aligned with your goals, temporarily you can say no, when other times you might say yes. Like, there aren't fixed rules with this stuff, but most of the time we aim to eat whole, unprocessed foods.
Yeah, and I think I can probably assume that like 60% of the people that will listen to this episode will be able to afford to have whole foods in their diet, because a lot of the people that listen to this episode, a percentage of them are going to be people that work with either of us. A percentage of them may be people that can't afford to necessarily have a coach. The people who can afford to have a coach are potentially the people that have better access to food because they have more disposable income. And for those people, it's more of a choice. For the people that don't necessarily have the means to, buy fresh fruit or fresh vegetables, feed a family, or just even get their weekly food shop as primarily whole foods, choices are going to be different. It doesn't mean that the people with access to food need to shame themselves for using processed foods for convenience. It doesn't mean the people that don't have access to whole foods need to shame themselves for not eating enough of them. We live in a very weird climate. Weird, horrible. We have a government that prioritizes a lot of things over food inequity, access to food, access to exercise, living wage, housing. Like, it's too hard. It's too hard to take a protein bar or don't eat something highly processed. If you can buy a 99p loaf of bread and give your kids breakfast for a week, can spend £6 on a handmade sourdough. Like, what you're gonna do.
Yeah, and
no one's fault. No one's doing anything bad. This person can't eat highly palatable food in moderation and doesn't think anyone else can.
Yeah,
it's too many different things.
Yeah, that's the problem. And also, the people that really struggle with food poverty, cost of living crisis, and who wouldn't be able to afford one-to-one coaching, they're the people that look to Joe Wicks and Channel 4 and the internet for nutrition advice, because we're talking about all of this stuff with our own privilege of being able to access food relationship information, research, support, guidance, of having clients that want to learn about this stuff. I just think it's incredible. But most people look at Joe Wicks as a household name that knows about health and fitness. And that is why this whole thing is really, really scary.
Yeah. It's the footprint and the platform that he has, and the fact that he's maybe he's kind of fucked it. I don't know what it will do next, but I think we can probably guarantee nothing's going to change, which is a shame. And if he's deflated by that, maybe he'll learn from it and try something else. Maybe he'll see the error of his ways. But for the most part, if you're listening to this, be aware of what you're eating. Be aware of your access to food and what that means for what you can afford or budget for. If you can't afford coaching, there are so many incredible coaches that make content every single day. I say trust the little guys more than trust the Joe Wicks millionaires. I'm being biased, but it is.
It's anybody that talks about some stuff in extremes, who talks about death, and you look at their stuff and it's like, I either really believe that because it's all the same and sounds too good to be true, or it's all confusing and contradictory. When it's extreme either way, it's not great.
One that talks white and extremes when it comes to eating patterns, food choice, and they're not acknowledging privilege, climate, environment.
Yeah.
The whole it's not the one.
No.
That's it. That's the take, innit? So that would do it, Small Gains family. There is the nuance that you're probably not going to get from a mainstream millionaire that got something wrong and put it all over the internet and in mainstream media, and could potentially influence negatively a lot of people's food relationships. I will do a longer deep dive on ultra processed foods later down the line in this podcast, because it'd probably be helpful to have some concrete understanding of it that comes from an evidence-based place and not just privileged people with big platforms. So I'll add that to the list of the many podcasts I want to get out for you lot. As always, this is the part of the show where I tell you about my offerings as a coach. My workout program subscription, Superhuman, is 19 quid a month. So if you currently don't have any workout programming intact, but you want to get into the gym with some structure, I have 2 programs on it currently. I have my Hybrid Awakening program, which is for running and lifting for beginners. And then I have my mask programs, Home with Dumbbells, Beginner Mask in the Gym, and Intermediate Mask in the Gym. And there is some more exciting things on the way that I'm going to bring you, hopefully before the end of the year. Take it easy, Small Gains family. Have an awesome rest of your week. That is me out. Love you.